he could not do that. No matter what, it's on their charter. Yeah, but you can't change the name of an organization like that. It could change its name. It's state charter. It could do that. Dr. Armisen worked so hard. Y'all are talented. I didn't get notification of the special call meeting on November 30th. It was an executive. I should have got notification of it.
Good afternoon. Chair calls to order the regular scheduled board meeting for the Greenville and Florida Consolidated School District's Board of Trustees. May we bow our head for a moment of silent prayer. Amen. Ms. Rimmer, please let the record reflect that Ms. Abraham is on the phone, so she has joined us. Colleagues, please review the agenda and the chair will entertain a motion.
At this time, on consideration for executive session, can I add another? A personal claim.
Attorney Palmer? 16.4, Ms. Lewis, is that okay?
Yeah.
For 16.4, we're at assertion of claim. Any other additions, colleagues? Hearing none, Chair will entertain a motion to accept the agenda with the addition of 16.4.
So moved.
It is, Coach, turn your mic on, Coach. It has been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Number 3, colleagues, are there any policy updates that we need to discuss? Hearing none, we'll move to number 4, Mr. Brooks.
Approval of November 14th, 2023 regular board meeting minutes, November 29th, 2023 work session minutes, and November 30th, 2023 special call minutes meeting.
Attorney Palmer, if you had an opportunity to review the minutes to ensure that they accurately depict the actions of the board for said time?
Yes, Mr. President, everything appears to be in order.
Colleagues, any questions?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
November 30th minutes, page 7, 4.1. That needs to be corrected.
Page 7.
Page 7. Dr. Moore recused herself and you exited the meeting. So that needs to be corrected.
All right, any other corrections, colleagues?
On the work session, is it customary to approve the agenda with a vote?
No, we don't vote in the work
Okay,
session.
that's under the work session,
All right.
under the minutes, number 2,
Okay.
page 9.
You got that, Ms. Rimmer, page 7 and page 9? All right, thank you, Mrs. Lewis. Any other corrections, colleagues? Your recommendation, Mr. Brooks.
The interim superintendent recommends school board approval for the November 14th, 2023 regular school board meeting, November 29th, 2023 work session minutes, and November 30th, 2023 special call minutes.
Mr. Brooks, would you be opposed to adding to your motion subject to the necessary corrections?
Subject to necessary correction.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brooks. Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation.
So moved.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. And you can hear us well, Ms. Abraham?
I didn't know if we had to do it by roll call.
Well, you're fine because you're the only one on the phone, so as long as you vote by roll call, we should be okay.
Mr. President, just to be clear, I would advise the board to go by roll call since you do have at least one person teleconference.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Attorney Palmer. So we'll go back and we'll entertain that motion again, just for record purposes, since, with a vote rather, since it has already been taken. Aye, Rashawn Bailey.
Aye, Jackie Lewis.
Henry Fant.
Go ahead, Ms. Abraham. Ayes have it, motion carried. Number 5, Mr. Brooks.
Approval of interim superintendent's report. Went over that last week. If you have any questions, try to answer.
I do have a question as it relates to the first 9 weeks data. Are we not benchmark testing anymore? Is that every 4 weeks? So do we don't have any benchmark results? So that's cut out for the entire year. Okay.
Any other questions, colleagues? Hearing none. Your recommendation, Mr. Brooks?
The interim superintendent recommends school board approval of the December interim superintendent's report.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation.
So moved.
Second, it's been moved and properly second. All in favor by roll call. Aye, Rashawn Bailey.
Aye, Jackie Lewis.
Henry Fant.
Ayes have it, motion carried. And Mr. Brooks, on behalf of the board, just want to express our sincere appreciation to you for your willingness to step in and lead our district. We recognize that it certainly was not an easy task. You may have taken on more than you can chew, but hopefully our district is in a better place because of your leadership. So again, thank you. Number 6.
Approval of the timeline to hire superintendent advertised for the position.
Colleagues, beginning on page 32, if I'm not mistaken. That's correct, Ms. Rimmer. The timeline that Dr. Moore so graciously put together for the board regarding a potential superintendent search. Are there any questions or concerns regarding the timeline? Hearing none, your recommendation, Mr. Brooks.
The interim superintendent recommends school board approval of the timelines to guide the superintendent search process and to advertise for the position of superintendent.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation. So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second. All in favor by roll call. Aye, Rashawn Bailey.
Aye, Jackie Lewis.
Henry. Henry Fant.
Ayes have it, motion carries. Number 7, Mr. Brooks.
16th session report, Ms. Washington.
Good evening. In light of what's going on right now, we want to table this simply because I've been talking to with the attorney, Mr. Cheney, the farmer, everybody that's involved pretty much with this plot of land, and we want to make sure we have everything in stone, basically, to say that these people will have a right, whoever wins has a right to actually use the premises. Right now we're dealing with an easement issue. So I thought we kind of had it worked out, but the guy said, no, call me Monday and I'll make a decision on whether or not I'll let them go through the land. So it's been a bit of a headache dealing with the different changes that happen out there. The farmers around that surrounding the area, they don't like the people who had it, and they didn't like some of the things they did. So what we're trying to do is come to an agreement that, okay, they have to follow, whoever has it, it doesn't matter who it is, whoever has it has to follow the lease agreement. One, they can't go in and rut people's property up, or they can't put deer stands and grain out there to attract deer on other people's property. As a matter of fact, you can't put a deer stand up on the tree. That's a violation of the lease agreement. So I just want to make sure that we follow the protocol and procedure. They're willing to bid it out. So I'll, if the board wants to, we can even go back through the bid process if you want to, because there's some other people who are interested in this property as well. So I'll let the board make a determination whether we go back and rebid, and then, because I do have bids right now, I haven't opened those. So we're either gonna open the bids we have, or we go back through the bid process from the beginning.
All right, thank you, Ms. Washington. Attorney Palmer, would it be appropriate to table the matter as recommended by, or suggested by, Mrs. Washington?
Dr. Bailey, as Ms. Washington has already alluded to, we've talked about this situation. There's a couple of things that need to be worked out for a smooth transitional process, if that's possible. So in light of that, I would advise the board to table this matter and give Ms. Washington, as well as myself, an opportunity to try to work these nuances out amongst the people who are stakeholders in this matter.
Thank you. Colleagues, any questions or concerns? Hearing none, if it's okay, Mr. Brooks, I'll entertain a motion to table the 16th section report that Ms. Washington has submitted. So moved. It has been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye. Rashawn Bailey.
Aye, Jackie Lewis.
Aye, Henry Fan.
Ayes have it. Motion carries. Mr. Brooks.
Bailey update, Mark Pippen.
Good afternoon, Mr. Pippen.
Good evening. You hear me? All right, hopefully you have your report in front of you. I handed it out just before the meeting. You can read it at your leisure, but I'll try to hit some of the high points and address any questions. At the end, I do have, again, a couple of action items to bring to you to hopefully act on tonight. First, on your ESSER projects, the restroom renovation project that, as I had mentioned to you last month, we're nearing completion and we're getting closer by the day. Again, all the base contract work is complete. They have finished, well, they're almost finished with all the painting. I think there are some areas that require a second coat, and the ceiling work at Greenwood High is also nearing completion. I anticipate all this work should be done prior to Christmas.
Question, Mr. Pippen. You handed out a document to the board?
Yes, sir. It was a one-page. I put it.
Okay. Thank you. We apologize. Thank you.
The other thing I would point out on the restroom project is we also did complete that lift station work at Amanda Elsie over the Thanksgiving break. It's in service. So that project's going well and should be nearing closeout by the end of this year. I'll move to the window project next. As you know, we bid it. Contract's been awarded to Ramsey. We finally got our meeting late in November with them and school representatives, Dr. Coleman, Mr. Howard, and the principal. I'm sorry, his name escapes me right now. But we met spent a lot of time, walked through the building. I think we have developed a plan to implement that work to minimize the disruption to students. I think he's developing to do the work in 8 different phases, and he's putting together the schedule to reflect that. And the work right now is scheduled to begin January 15th in the first section that the school turns over to us. So I think at least at this point, everything started off well. It looks like we have a good plan, and it should be moving forward, like I said, January 15th. On the carpet project, again, that job was awarded to Paul Jackson and Son. We've had the pre-construction meeting. Everything's been executed. They've actually started work. I think at Greenwood Middle, they've completed all the demolition of all the carpet. They have painted or nearing completion painting of all those rooms, and actually started the floor prep in there. We had scheduled to go to LaFleur County next, but I think they were going to soon schedule testing. So we adjusted the schedule. They moved over to the Career Tech. They're doing demolition there, starting the painting there. And I think they've also moved over to Threadgill Elementary and Primary as well. So that's starting off so far so good. And again, working with the district and the principals, everybody's been real cooperative, and contractors been able to adjust and keep progressing. So that's moving along rather well. On the HVAC project, again, that one has been moving more slowly than the others. Most of the work has been focused at Threadgill Elementary. You have a lot of the units installed, a lot of the cassettes are in pre-startup mode. I know they were working in cooling mode. Work at the other 3 schools, Bankston, Greenwood High, and the primary school are lagging behind but progressing to some degree. And that brings us up, well, let me do this. Let me first talk about the budget. Just to update you again on it. If you remember correctly, last month I had mentioned we started out this work with around $28 million, 29 for all the ESSER work. The district had made some adjustments and moved money between ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. We're still at that $29 million mark, and so far everything is still falling in line in budget. If you remember too, we had mentioned that we have about $820,000 that had not been allocated, that the district was hoping to purchase some buses with, and we expressed some concern about maybe using some of that for some change order items. Which leads me to my first action item for tonight. As you recall, last month I came to you with an issue at Threadgill Primary on the HVAC project with electrical. Similar to the high school project, we need to demolish an existing panel and install a new panel, 800 amp service, 480 volt service, in order to power up all the equipment that you're going to have, all this new HVAC equipment. And the change actually has 2 parts. That HVAC work is $114,732.59. There's a second item also at Greenwood High School. This came at the district's request. We basically have like small HVAC pads and courtyards for where the equipment goes. They had asked that we relocate one of those and move them to provide better access. And in order to do that, it requires a little more site work and some utility work. That change is $3,800. So tonight I'd like the board to take action to again approve $118,532.59 for those 2 items. Any questions? Amount? $118,532.59. I guess I should have put that on the report for you. I apologize.
Any questions, colleagues, comments? What is the will of the body?
I credit you take, Mr. Pepper's recommendation.
Can you put that in a motion, Ms. Abraham, if you don't mind?
Yes, I move that we, accept Mr. Pepper's recommendation for changes that need to be made.
And would you object saying in the amount of $118,532.59?
That's fine.
Oh, is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye, Jackie Lewis.
Any
Ray
opposed?
Henry Fant.
Nay, Rashawn Bailey.
Nay, Kalani Moore.
Motion.
I'd like to know, Dr. Baker, from the colleagues that were both nays, from those of you who voted nay, what do you expect them to do if they can't go further without this?
Well, I can't speak for my colleagues, Ms. Abraham, and again, I'm not a electrician, but again, when we're talking about potential costs, this is our first change order regarding working with Bailey Program Management, and it appears that we're consistently having change orders, and something dealing with electricity, I would assume, and again, this is not my area of expertise, you would look at your control panel or your breaker panel to see what type of voltage is there to support the units that you're putting into a facility. Again, that's just me speaking for myself.
Could
I
I,
think that when you started on this project, that's one of the first things that you would look at. Knowing those are old buildings, I mean, you can look at the structure of the building and know that it's old, and possibly all of these things need to be changed, so it should have been in your original budget.
well, if I could respond to that.
Yes, sure,
So-
sure.
So my understanding is the electrical engineer works for Beard Reiser, who's the architect of record. The electrical engineer's out of Memphis. They did do field investigation work, and it's my understanding that this panel, similar to that at Greenwood High School, was mislabeled. It's listed, I believe, at 208. So they do open the panel, they see what's there. But unless you're an electrician, actually open and get behind it and see the wiring and see what's done, you don't know. And so that's what contractor started his work and got in there and said, oh, wait a minute, this isn't what you really have. We need a newer panel with more capacity. And that's what led to this. So the electrical engineers can do some investigative work, but they're not electricians, so they don't open up the panels. They take what's on your existing drawings or how your panels are labeled and how the circuits are labeled, and they use that information. It wasn't correct.
And question, Mr.
Is there a limit to the number of change orders any management company in particular yours or your management?
Well,
Is there a limit to the amount of change orders that can come before a board?
Yeah, usually what you try to do on projects of this, and I don't want to sound offensive. You understand, we're not the architects or the engineers. I work for the district to help manage. So in this case, we've got 3 different architects and engineers working on different projects. You've got Dale Bailey Architects doing the restroom project. Beard Reiser and his design team is doing the HVAC, and Greg Durrell is doing the carpet work. We coordinate hiring those people, having them do their jobs, try to review the things and help you and take the burden off Mr. Howard so that he can focus on his things, manage the projects for you. We rely on the engineers to do their due diligence. And again, having been an engineer myself and being in their position in the past, I'm a structural engineer, not electrical. You rely on that as-built information, and there's only so much they can do invasive to figure that out.
I think in good faith, Mr. Pepper, we allow some leniency and a little bit of wiggle room. We do have to have money to, and I understand there was a concern from the higher level administration during our work session. But I just think that we have been consistent in making and allowing change orders to go forward. So I just think that as these projects move forward, we are very cognizant of the work that has to go into it before the amounts are approved.
Let me ask this too, just to help, if it does.
Go ahead.
You had mentioned change orders. How many do you do? There's a certain standard of care that professionals are to provide when they provide their design service to you. It's not perfection, and there's kinds of different reasons for issues. There can be an omission where they simply forgot to put something in the documents. Let's just say you wanted 10 doors, 9 in. There are errors that engineers make, that something's incorrect. But there can also be what's called latent conditions, something that they couldn't have known in advance or without more exploration had figured out. This kind of falls into that latent condition, in my opinion, because the panel was mislabeled. I would also say this to this board. If we don't approve this change, there's some portion of the new mechanical equipment that's been purchased and installed that will not work. I'm guessing, talking to the engineers, somewhere between a third to a half of the new equipment won't
That has
function.
already been purchased.
Been installed. And so what they're doing is, what they did in a lot of this work is, did it in phases. Where they could, they installed the equipment, ran the conduit, ran the line sets, ran the condensate. And now they're doing some of the last part, hooking up the power and opening those panels and saying, oh my goodness, there's not enough power. It's not like what it shows on the drawing.
You know,
Coach, Ms. Lewis had a question. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Lewis.
So, Mr. Pepper, what would be the total amount that we have spent with that particular equipment being installed that's gonna potentially be stalled?
Right now, your contract for the HVAC work, and that, you gotta remember, that's everything. That's equipment, labor, all the parts, is 6 million. Well, no, let me add that up. On ESSER 2, it's about 6.5 million. ESSER 3, you're spending about 11.7 million. What is that, 12, 17, that's $18 million.
So that is the amount for the HVAC
And all that goes with it to put it in.
that will not,
No, that's not at one school.
No, ma'am, that's not at one school.
That's the entire
No,
district.
know from where the change order needs to be incorporated.
Can't tell you.
I can't tell you tonight. I could provide you a ballpark figure with that. And if you allow me, I'll be glad to do that tomorrow.
Okay, I would like to know that. Also, in my opinion, it's just like renovating a home. You can, a carpenter or whomever gives you an estimate, can give you an estimate, and somewhere down the line, something has been left out. It's my opinion, we cannot allow this equipment to just be there and not be able to be used. If they can't install the panel, it's just a waste of taxpayers' money.
All right, and so the motion has failed.
I want to go on record that I will only support this because it's the only option we have. It is not unusual to have this type of change order, and I want to be responsible, and our school officials have requested it. We need this work done.
Coach Fant, your question?
I'm in agreement that we need the work done. I'm in agreement that we spent a lot of money already. But what I can't accept is, you say you done installed all of this stuff. In the last phase of it, then you go to the panel box. Now, I'm not a electrical engineer, but the first thing that I would do would go to the panel box. That would be the first thing. And then I'll know what to install. Because see, if you go in there and take a look at it, I mean, I'm pretty sure the guys that you hired as the electrical engineer would know. And if the engineer does not know, then the electricians that they hire would know. So when did you hire the people to do the electrical work?
The way the process works is the design team is hired. The board agreed to hire Beard Riser and their design team. They put together a set of documents. We get board approval to advertise to the general public contracting world to accept bids on that work. And there's a set of documents, drawing specifications that tell them all what they're supposed to do. That was put out for public bid. People bid on it. The successful bidder was Upchurch. They start implementing the work. The manner in which they implement the work is at their discretion. We don't dictate to them means and methods, and nor does the district. You don't want to. They're responsible for how they do it, the sequence in which they do it. You don't want to be responsible for that. That's up to them. And in doing so, they identified this problem. And to be honest, I don't recall exactly when it was, but I think we've brought this up now at least for 2 months in board meetings because it has been out there. I share your frustration. I get it. I've been on your side of the table, being the owner, hiring the architects and the engineers, and having to sit there and deal with a change order. But as I mentioned, there's a certain standard level of care that they're to provide, and it's not perfection. I mean, think about all the hundreds of thousands of decisions and details in those documents, and if we approve this, 118,000 out of 18 million, I mean, it's what, 1%?
Well, not necessarily, because we don't have 18 million. We've spent
No,
exhaustive
no,
majority.
but
of
I'm
it.
saying the contract's 18 million.
Right, but this
And
is,
so this change is less than 1%.
but it's not the first change. Now, my question
No,
is.
sir, it's not. It's the second.
Contingency. What,
Yes.
what happened to the contingency fund? Is there no contingency fund?
That's what, in this particular project, there was none in the contract, no, sir.
Is there-
It was part of that 820 that we were hoping to use for things like this. In some of the other projects, like the carpet, and I think on the windows, in those, we do have contingency allowances built in for matters just like this. It was not the case for the HVAC.
Okay. Is that standard operating procedure or just mishap?
We like to normally do it.
Okay.
I'm not sure why Beard Riser didn't put it
Okay.
in this particular one.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you. Your next one, Mr. Piper.
All right, the second one, as I had mentioned to you before too, we're working the roofing project with you, Dixie Roofing. I think the original contract was like $1,066,000. They started work early on in the project, and I don't recall when this was, probably a month, 2 months ago, maybe 3. We found a better way to do one of the roofs at Amanda Elsie, and so we were able to do a deductive change order, get you a credit back of $168,871. If you remember when we started that project, there was a whole laundry list of roofs we wanted to do, and the only ones we felt like we could afford and bid at that time were Amanda Elsie, Greenwood Middle, and Bankston. So $1,066,000, we took $168,000 credit, and in doing this, Mr. Howard identified some needs at Greenwood High School over the kitchen, cafeteria, and wing A to it too was on that priority list, but we couldn't afford it at the time. To add that work would be $152,915, and so that project would still be a net credit to you at this point. And by the way, I do remember on that one, we have, I think, $85,000 in contingency also still built in there, so we could probably do a little bit more. But I would like approval to issue change order for $160,915 to do that roofing work at Greenwood.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve the change order to add roofing at Greenwood High School over the kitchen, cafeteria, and wing A for a cost of $152,915. So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye. Rashawn Bailey.
Aye, Jackie Lewis.
Nay, Henry Fant.
Ayes have it. Motion carried. Please let the record reflect Coach Fant's vote. Thank you, Mr. Pepper.
Thank you.
Safe trip.
Merry Christmas to you guys.
Likewise, happy holidays. Number 9, Mr. Brooks.
Number 9 is Gill, and they called in sick, they won't be here.
Second time, Dr. Moore. All right.
Third time.
Third, okay, I'm sorry. Thanks for the correction. Number 10, we have public participation. Are there any members from the public who would like to address the board? Seeing none. Do we have anybody for public comments? No. All right. So we'll move on to number 12, our regular agenda, 12.1. Mr. Brooks.
Approval of donations. Ms. Vinnie White would like to donate $5,000 for student incentives. Incentives.
Questions, colleagues? Hearing none. Your recommendation, Mr. Brooks.
The interim superintendent recommends school board approval of a $5,000 donation from Ms. Vinnie White for student incentives at Threadgill Elementary School and Greenwood High School.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye. Rashawn Bailey.
Aye, Jackie Lewis.
Aye, Kalani Moore.
Aye, Henry Fant.
Ayes have it. Motion carried. And Ms. Vinnie White, thank you so much for your support of our children here in the Greenwood LaFleur Consolidated School District. Bonnie White, I'm sorry. Mr. Brooks, 12.2.
Delta Health Center. Delta Health Center provides pre-employment physical exams, drug screening for prospective employees.
Colleagues, MOA begins on page 38. Questions or concerns? Ms. Lewis?
Yes, I do have a question. Who do I need to direct it to?
She has a question.
As it relates to this service that they are offering or providing for us, were any other entities, considered? Did it have to be a bid process or what?
Doc, can you speak into the mic for us? Thank you.
Yes, we looked at several vendors. They have to be willing to do it.
Okay, and no one else applied, just Delta Health Center?
Yes, we petitioned Delta Health Center and several other businesses. They just would not give an MOU for it.
Okay, and the $80 that's being charged, does the district pay that or does the individual pay that?
In the past, when employees are hired, the employee pays it. It comes out of the first check.
You say in the past?
In the past,
So-
you would have to ask Mr. Griffin, who's over personnel.
So right now, we don't know who's gonna pay for it? Is that what you're saying?
Usually the employee pays 50 and then the district pays the additional amount.
And the 80 in the MOU is for total screening. We're only using one part service, which is the actual drug screening.
So it's less than 80?
It's less than 80.
A lot less.
Okay, I still would like to know who's gonna incur that charge.
Like, you know what?
Who's gonna incur the charge? Who's gonna pay their portion?
Like Ms. Thomas said, district pays, I think, what, 50%?
Normally the employee pays 50 and then the district pays the additional amount. So if it was 75, the district would pay the 25 and the employee would pay the 50 and it would come out of their first check.
So it's a shared cost between the employee and the district, with the employee incurring the most or the majority of it. Any other questions or? Ms.
Dr.
Lewis?
Coleman, who was providing this service before now?
I think we use the clinic, and I know we've used Fast Paced in the past. And for our transportation and those guys, we use a different service. They come to us.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, colleagues? Hearing none, your recommendation, Mr. Brooks.
The interim superintendent recommends school board approval for the MOU with Delta Health Center to provide pre-employment drug screening for prospective employees.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation. So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye. Rashawn Bailey.
Hi, Jackie Lewis.
I, Kalani Moore.
Henry Fan.
Ayes have it. Motion carries. Mr. Brooks, 12.3.
Approval of transfer 16 section interest funds.
This is on page 41, colleagues. Are there any questions or concerns?
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. And that.
It's a correction, it was a correction made. It's on your full agenda.
Okay. Colleagues, you should have a single page. And if you're on all agendas, it has been updated. Mrs. Lewis.
Yes. This request for transfer, what is different with this one and the last one we approved that led us down a line to litigation?
I can respond to this one. It is my understanding that, and the interim superintendent and maybe Ms. Thomas can address it, This is almost $20,000 less than what was borrowed last time. And then also, for this particular budget, if I'm not mistaken, there was a sitting superintendent that presented the budget to us.
What difference does it make with a superintendent versus an interim superintendent?
Well, I think that gets into the litigation piece of the conversation.
And then in the past, I've always asked that each office, is having conversations in regard to, our finances. So, and this is not, the first time that the board has requested the office to have conversations when it comes to spending. So I just think that, we should, exercise those particular instances when budgets are presented to us from the higher level administration for approval. So we only get what is provided to us. So we just like a little bit of, clarity when it comes to budgets and spending.
Any other questions, colleagues? Hearing none, your recommendation, Mr. Brooks.
Interim Superintendent recommends school board approval of the request to transfer $770,367.75 of 16 session interest fund. All funds will be transferred back to the 16 session interest account once all tax revenue has been received.
The chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation.
So moved.
Second, it's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye. Rashawn Bailey.
Nay, Jackie Lewis.
Aye. Aye, Henry Fant.
Dr. Moore, your vote.
Dr. Wanda Moore.
Ayes have it, motion carries. 12.4, Mr. Brooks.
Approval of request assistance from the Lee Floyd County Board of Supervisors.
Is this a handout too? This one. Colleagues, Ms. Abraham should have it in her old agenda. Ms. Abraham, it should be in your old agendas, but colleagues, you should have, you should have this as an attachment. And this is in regards to our local board of supervisors assisting the district with paving some portions of Amanda Elsie High School's, I don't want to necessarily call it the parking lot near the gymnasium and band hall. Mrs. Lewis.
How many years ago did we just have this done?
Now, I know LaFleur and Claudine Brown was recently done. I'm not certain how long ago Amanda Elsie, or if it was Mr. Howard's not here. Do you recall, Ms. Thomas, or Dr. Coleman, or Ms. Wentz? I don't know if we did Elsie.
I think so.
It's something new out there.
Right,
I know.
Claudine Brown might have been done at the same time.
I know LaFleur and Claudine Brown was, because I think Supervisor Mitchell submitted something to the
So
board.
Elsie has never been done?
I can't say never. I can't say never, but I don't recall. Any idea, Dr. Coleman? No, don't remember. Okay. And LaFleur, okay.
I can go pull the information and
That's okay.
Any other questions, colleagues? Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Your recommendation, Mr. Brooks.
The interim superintendent recommends school board approval of the request to send a letter to the Floyd County Board of Supervisors for assistance with the above listed requests.
Chair will entertain the motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation. So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye, Rashawn Bailey.
Aye, Jackie Lewis.
I, Kalani Moore.
I, Henry Fant.
I'm Angela Abraham.
Ayes have it, motion carries. And again, to our LaFleur County Board of Supervisors, thank you so much for working with us here in the Greenwood LaFleur Consolidated School District. We have consent agenda next, colleagues, 13.1 and 13.2. Are there any questions regarding those items? It's page 44 and 45. No, Ms. Lewis, you asked about 45, I think, during the work session.
So here's the, but it wasn't on their original request. But you can go ahead.
All right, so just for clarification, the request for the fundraiser at Amanda Elsie, is it different from what was originally?
Yes,
It
it
is?
is. It's
Okay,
different.
okay, it's different. So colleagues, are there any questions about the fundraiser at Amanda Elsie since? And Ms. Thomas, we have a mechanism in place to ensure that the funds collected are handled properly per policy?
I'll look at whatever documentation they have because I see that it says the entire process is online, but I haven't seen the actual.
Mr. President, the principal said that the pizza place would get all the money and then just give them the portion back that they, you know,
Right.
amount they sold in one lump sum, so
Gotcha.
they wouldn't handle any money before.
Okay. All right, so colleagues, Mr. Brooks is saying that the PISA entity will actually receive all of the funds and at a predetermined time, issue a check to Amanda Elsie
Right.
in regards to the fundraising. Ms. Thomas, Attorney Palmer, is this in line with our policies? Ms. Thomas, tell us.
I mean, as long as they're, I mean, they are giving it to the company and then they are sending the money, then they should send us a report that shows the allocations, and so we should be okay.
Ms.
The
Lewis?
only thing that I would ask, to be considered is that each school maybe request from the board a list of fundraisers at one time instead of sporadically adding different fundraisers throughout the year.
And I
And
think,
maybe all of them can be approved at one time.
and I think this is your second act for something of that nature. All right, any other comments, colleagues? Hearing none, your recommendation, Mr. Brooks? And this is for the entire consent agenda.
The interim superintendent recommends that, what number is that? 13.
Mr. President,
Yes, ma'am.
how far down does our consent agenda?
Where is that?
Just items 13.1 and 13.2. Yes, ma'am.
The interim superintendent recommends that the consent agenda be approved.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye. Rashawn Bailey.
Aye, Jackie Lewis.
I, Kalani Moore.
I, Henry Fant.
I'm Angela Abraham.
Ayes have it. Motion carries. Number 14, 14.1, Mr. Brooks.
After-school program. The curriculum department is requesting the district permission to assign personnel in the following schools to remediate students in grade 2 through 4 at the following sites, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursdays, 3:30 to 5:15.
Colleagues, this begins on page 46. That's correct, Ms. Rummer?
44.
44? 46? Okay. Are there any questions? As you see, The after-school programs will occur at Bankston, Davis, East, LaFleur County Elementary, Threadgill Elementary, and Claudine Brown. No questions, colleagues?
This
Direct-
program is fully funded federally.
Your recommendation, Mr. Brooks.
Interim superintendent recommends the school board approve the following personnel attachment funded by the federal programs. ESSER, American Rescue Plan, to work in the after-school program serving second and fourth grade students in the Greenwood LaFleur Consolidated School District.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye. Rashawn Bailey.
Aye, Jackie Lewis.
I, Kalani Moore.
Aye, Henry Fant.
I'm not doing anything.
Ayes have it, motion carries. 14.2, Mr. Brooks.
Process Standard 29, in-service safety training.
Is it I don't have that. I don't. Is there anything, unless I'm overlooking? Okay, we're on page 50, colleagues. I apologize. Are there any questions? Hearing none. Your recommendation, Mr. Brooks.
Interim superintendent recommend board approval to pay the transportation department personnel, including bus drivers, monitors, and transportation support staff, for the required in-service safety training, professional development to be held on January 4th, 2024.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye. Rashawn Bailey.
Aye, Jackie Lewis.
I, Kalani Moore.
Aye, Henry Fant.
I'm not doing anything.
Ayes have it, motion carries. 14.5, Mr. Brooks. I'm sorry, 14.3. Getting ahead of myself.
Approval of 2023 personnel report.
Colleagues, the reports are on page 52 and 53. If my numbers are correct. Are there any questions or concerns? Hearing none. Your recommendation, Mr. Brooks.
Interim superintendent recommends school board approval of the 2023-24 personnel report.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation.
So move.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye. Rashawn Bailey.
Aye, Jackie Lewis.
I, Kalani Moore.
Aye, Henry Fant.
I'm not doing anything.
Ayes have it, motion carries. 14.4, Mr. Brooks.
Personnel recommendation, job description. The job description for the superintendent is attached for approval.
Colleagues, I believe Mrs. Rimmer has provided this to us before. So again, it is being put forth for action. So are there any questions? And this begins on page 56. Hearing no questions, Mr. Brooks, your recommendation.
The interim superintendent recommends school board approval of the attached job description for the superintendent.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation. So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye. Rashawn Bailey.
I, Kalani Moore.
Aye, Henry Fant.
Aye, Jackie Lewis.
I'm not doing anything.
Ayes have it. Motion carries. 14.5, Mr. Brooks. I'm on page 62.
Approval of district literacy coach.
Colleagues, are there any questions or concerns? I do have a question. Mr.
Oh, okay. We have the email, but we don't have the hard copies. Or is this it?
No, it's not
Oh,
hard. Ms. Johnson, I know you're not the personnel person, director, but if you recall, we talked about with it being a grant-funded position in the contract, and Ms. Wentz, you could probably help me. Can there be language included that indicates, for whatever reason, if this grant is discontinued, then employment may be discontinued as well, so that the district would not be left with that burden potentially of covering the cost of a salary? Attorney Palmer, remember the conversation? Okay.
Yes, sir. We went and added the grant funded position claimer, and it's on their job description as well, and also was resubmitted. Should be in your pack. The language is right on the job description for all three of those positions.
Yeah, I don't think we had it, but if you can give it to Attorney Palmer, and if he says it's okay, and maybe before we leave, if we could just get a copy of that. It was approved last time? Okay. Okay, yes, ma'am. Any other questions, colleagues? Just waiting on a head nod from Attorney Palmer.
Dr. Bailey, based upon my review, this is sufficient.
Thank you, Attorney Palmer. Mr. Brooks, your recommendation.
The interim superintendent recommends school board approval of Kenyatta Williams as the district literacy coach with a starting date of January 4th, 2024.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye. Rashawn Bailey.
hi, Jackie Lewis.
I, Kalani Moore.
Hi, Henry Fant.
Ayes have it, motion carries. Number 15, Mr. Brooks.
Monthly financial report.
You gave us a lot of papers, Ms. Thomas.
I do have a question, Mr. President.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Thomas, can you please, provide us with a page number where our fund balance is currently?
And while you're looking for that, Ms. Thomas, I will say, colleagues, I don't know if either of you have had an opportunity to visit the high schools, but I did have an opportunity to go to LaFleur, and the work that Mr. Gatewood had completed on the floor was really outstanding, along with the lighting. So it's my hope that each of the schools' basketball courts reflect the same. So just want to give kudos to Mr. Gatewood and the athletics department for a job well done.
It wouldn't be on page 252.
My pages are different from in mine. I really don't see it. I don't know if I'm missing some pages. Because it should have been behind the your cash flow worksheet.
So can you, while we're in executive session, get a copy for everybody, if that's okay? Is that okay with you, Ms. Thomas? And we may have it, the page numbers just could potentially be different. Mrs. Lewis.
Ms. Thomas, as it relates to the fund balance, please educate me on this, cause, hold on. So, I looked at the fund balance in May, and it was somewhere around $7 million. And I looked at it in October, so it's down to $2 million. Can you enlighten me or us?
So those are two different fiscal years. Let me start out by saying that. And also during this time of the year, you don't get a lot of Avalon, but your expenses, if you're not cutting expenses, then you still have all of those same expenses, but you're operating on less funds because you're not getting those big Avalon checks that you get during the beginning of the year. So what I have seen since I've been in this position, during this time of the year, it's good to try to either cut some things or revamp how things are being paid. And I'm just gonna put that out here while we're sitting here tonight. For example, we have a whole lot of coaching supplements, and my recommendation is that's something that needs to be spread over 12 months instead of 3 and 4 months, because when you do it over 3 and 4 months, you're depleting your cash.
Should that have been stated to us at the budget hearing at the beginning of the year?
Now, this is something that I have been recommended, but I can only recommend. The final decision is not mine when it comes to how this is being paid.
Could you repeat that again?
I can only recommend it, but it's not, the final say on how it's paid is, it's not my decision. So.
Does that need to be in the form of a policy?
It could, but and that's part of the issues, because if you see, just an example with athletics, that's over $100,000 a month in salaries and benefits.
So you stated that we should be cutting. My question is, are we cutting? Outside of athletics?
Not really, being honest. And I think we probably, it may be a staffing thing as well, because when you lose students, you shouldn't have the same amount of staff, because you're only going to get paid according to the number of students, your ADA. So, it's a lot of factors that.
How many students do we presently have?
I can run that while you're in executive session, because I did get access to SAMS and tell you how many we have currently, but I don't know off the top of my head to give you an accurate number.
Okay, do you know the number of students we've lost since school started?
I don't.
Mr. Brooks, you wanted to say something?
Mr. President, I'd just like to say the reason we are having to borrow money is because we have too many schools. We can't, as long as we have all these schools, we can continue to come out in the hole. We have to pay 3 of everything. 3 coaching staffs, 3, we have too many schools, and we're gonna continue to be in the hole as long as we have all these schools.
Totally.
And that's the bottom line.
Colleagues, any other questions? Colleagues, is it the will of the board that we table this until, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The enrollment is 3,912 currently.
Okay, thank you.
And colleagues, have you had a chance to check those page numbers that I gave? Is that the information that was requested? So we found the balance. Thank you for that information, Ms. Rimmer. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Lewis.
Ms. Thomas, I have a question about claim number 957112. I wrote it down. 957112.
Try page 92, Dr. Moore and Coach Fant.
It's 62 in this pad,
Oh, it's 62?
in this pad.
Well, I mean,
Uh-huh.
Ms. Lewis says it's page 62 in the
This
packet.
pack is 62.
Page 62.
So it's Team Broadcasting Incorporated.
And Ms. Abraham, it should be page 92 in the O agendas packet.
Is it one school or three schools? Oh, that's too much. She looking up the claim.
This is broadcasting invoice for Greenwood High,
Is that one sport?
one school.
No, one sport.
More than likely, it's probably football, but let me make sure.
Also, did we incur those same, expenses for the other two schools?
Yes, ma'am, it was just a different vendor, and it probably was, I think the difference was 4,500 for the other two schools, but it was a different vendor.
Ms. Thomas, is there any kind of way we can get a report relating to sports? Each sport, each school, no.
It's when you know, remember before I gave you the journal history transaction report. Now, if you want me to just put it where it just only show the expenditures, so it doesn't show those additional numbers, so you can read it, I can run that for you, and it'll just only have expenses only.
I would like to see the expenses based on the actual revenues that are being taken in. You know, what?
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll run you a journal history transaction report. I'll do one that just only has the revenue, so it doesn't have everything clumped together so you can understand it. And then I'll do an additional one with the expenses. And that way you can look at it from that point. It'll have the totals on each one for revenues. One I have the revenues and one I have the expenditure totals.
Okay, is football self-supportive?
That's not a fair question.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not. Because you have non-revenue generating sports such as tennis, baseball, softball, track, cross country, and football, basketball supports what it's supposed to. Support the revenue generated from football supports, and basketball supports all of those programs. So that's not a fair question, but that's just, Ms. Thomas.
Does it?
Well, it supports it, but the district, you know, supports it as well, just being honest.
Any other questions, colleagues? That was a trick question, Ms. Lewis. Your recommendation, Mr. Brooks?
Interim Superintendent recommends Interim Superintendent recommends school board approval of the September financial report and the payments of claims 95710 to 957231.
Chair will entertain a motion based on the interim superintendent's recommendation.
so move.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye, Rashawn Bailey.
Hi, Jackie Lewis.
Now, Henry Fant.
Ayes have it, motion carries. Ms. Thomas, just a sidebar that Ms. Lewis and I was just having, Mr. Interim Superintendent. Potentially, some schools are going to online ticket sales or cashless solely. And we're not insinuating anything, but maybe that's a way where we can. You've been screaming from the mountaintop? All right, well. Mhm. I didn't mean to get you to start preaching over there.
So have you identified a company?
I've been on a webinar with them and everything. I even had, before this school year started, they sent me a free debit card scanner. They were going to give us an additional one, and we would only have to pay for one since we have 3 games that are, may have 3 games in one night. And the card readers were only $100, but they were going to also donate us another one because we have 3 different schools. And, but.
So what has been your roadblock?
Well, the final say-so has to come from the top administrators. I can only recommend, and I didn't recommend Mr. Brooks when he first came. When we were in a meeting.
You never recommended that to me. So.
When me and you at Gatewood was in a meeting, we talked about it, but it wasn't a recommendation.
Okay.
So
is that a possibility?
Ms. Brooks, I know your time is coming to an end, but can you share that in your continuity plan, the transition plan, with the new interim to maybe look into that and explore that, and then hold the board accountable in the sense of asking that it's implemented moving forward?
Yeah, I've talked about it, but it's never been discussed.
Ms. Wentz?
Even though we're talking about this electronic
Get a mic, Ms. Wentz.
Even though we're talking about electronic ticketing, we still have to have some other options for those that don't have electronic cards and all that. So we're going to have to take up some money and give receipts and those things for those. We have to consider those people that don't have online banking and all that.
Yes, ma'am.
I've gone to events that those don't. If you didn't do it electronically, that's the only way you can get in. You had to get somebody to do it for you, or you just didn't get in. So.
All right. Chair will entertain a motion for consideration of executive session. I'm sorry, Ms. Lewis.
Oh, I wanted to ask a question. Dr. Coleman, what's the status on Greenwood Middle School cafeteria table?
I have one quote here for you, and we have another visiting quote on Friday, Ms. Totten and myself, so we're working on it. I have a quote for you.
That one quote is $24,128.04, and like the man is coming Thursday, Friday, to give us another quote.
But child nutrition can financially support that, right?
Huh?
Yeah, okay.
Colleagues, are there any more questions from the table? Mr. Brooks, are there any more concerns or anything else you would like to say?
I have none.
Okay. Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
My last question. So did we ever establish who is actually monitoring the process standards? I think I asked about that in a work session.
Everyone is monitoring process standards. Everyone has an area or they have particular standards that fall within their departments.
So what about the school level administrators? Are they required to?
Absolutely. They have a we call it a monitoring box. So we have it in every department. Federal has monitoring, special education has monitoring, operations has monitoring, curriculum has monitoring. We all have a part we must play in the process standards.
Chair will entertain a motion for consideration of executive session.
So moved.
Second, it's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye. Rashawn Bailey.
Hi, Jackie Lewis.
Aye, Kalanya Moore.
Aye, Henry Fant.
Ayes have it. Motion carries.
Dr. Bates, excuse me, I just need somebody to call me when you get into executive session, please.
We have it taken care of.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Dr. Malone, I will ask Ms. Rimmer if we can set you up.
Don't know about some of these questions.
Gingerbread, that house, gingerbread house was just so Christmassy. I will make sure they know. It really was. I will, they, you know, I was trying to be. Big shout out to Aaron's, cause Aaron's and Grenada provided us all the boxes. Yeah, look at them, look at them. They have been really helpful. And we're going to, both managers bend over backwards, trying to help us at the, get the job done. Are they gonna have an executive session?
Ladies and gentlemen, the board has deliberated and has decided to go into executive session for the following purposes. Number one is interim superintendent evaluation. Number two is board attorney evaluation. Number three is prospective interim superintendent interviews. And number four is assertion of claim as prospective litigation.